Okay, I'm going to be explaining to you what we're going to be doing for our research essay. Now, first of all, you should have gotten your Journal 3 into me by this morning at 9 o'clock. If you haven't yet done that, it is late, but you can still do it, okay? I'm going to walk you through what we're going to be doing for the next 2 weeks. First of all, I want you to be aware that this is for just 2 weeks, so you should be doing some of this for homework. So if you take a look, here's our schedule. Today I'm going to be introducing the research essay to you, picking a topic, and you're going to begin your research. Tomorrow and Wednesday are for research. If you look at the back of the room, tomorrow I'm actually going to have a checkpoint for you because I just honestly want to be able to see that you're doing it correctly. So all you will do for the checkpoints is you will turn it in and show me what you have, okay? Then Thursday, okay, will be our outline. Friday will be our movie day. Now for that day we're going to be comparing two different versions of the movie, okay? Monday, we're going to write our first draft. Tuesday, same thing. Wednesday, same thing. First draft is due at the end of Wednesday. Peer eval is Thursday. And Friday is our editing final draft due that day. Now, you will not have enough time in class to do all of this unless you are an outrageously fast worker. Okay, so you're going to have to do some of this at home. Some of this will be homework. So if you need like hard copies of stuff or whatever, please tell me so that I can make that happen for you. So if you notice under the Great Gatsby, I have a sort of subsection for the research essay just because we're going to have a bunch of materials and I want to make certain that they're all in the same place for you. Oh, I forgot to mention to you guys, the character chart, we're going to finish that tomorrow. I'm going to change the due date to tomorrow, all right? So what I want you to do is you'll notice down here we have a research rubric, research essay with our rubric as well as explanation. So I'm just going to read through this really quickly. Follow along, please. So the prompt is you're going to be composing a 5 to 6 page research essay about Winesburg, Ohio and or The Great Gatsby. You can write about both if you want. Okay, you'll choose your own topic that will be approved by me and use textual evidence to support your ideas. You cannot use the same topic as our other journals. So for example, Winesburg, Ohio, we wrote about how Winesburg, Ohio was a modernist text. That was sort of your final assessment for that novel. Okay, so you can't write about just Winesburg, Ohio being a modernist text. However, you could write about how Winesburg and Gatsby are modernist texts if you would like. Okay, or you could just write about how Gatsby is modernist text. All right, that's just up to you. Occasionally during the research and writing process, your instructor will have a conference with you about your progress. Sometimes that'll just be in the form of checkpoints. For example, tomorrow you will have a checkpoint. All you're going to do is you're going to turn in at least 10 notes to me tomorrow, and that'll be sort of a you have it or you don't. Okay, if you have an excused absence, then you're excused from a checkpoint. You are not excused from the first draft. Sorry about that. You are not excused from the first draft. You are not excused from turning in the notes, but you are excused from checkpoints if you have an excused absence for that day. Okay? Otherwise, it's just turn in what you have so that I can give you some comments, tell you what you're doing well, tell you what you need maybe to tweak. Okay? During these meetings, if we're meeting, sometimes we might do that face-to-face. Just be prepared to explain your topic and demonstrate that you are on track. Formatting, very similar to what we've been doing. Emily formatting, 5 paragraphs, 5 sentences long, yada, yada, yada. You need to have, this is why I need to change. You need to have at least 3 additional sources. Okay, you need to have the novel and then 3 additional sources. I'm going to talk you through that in a second. All right, and this is sort of what you're going to be submitting to me. All right, I'll explain the note cards and everything else to you in a minute. Okay, but just be aware this is going to kind of be what's tallying up the additional points. All right, now here are a few example topics. I just honestly listed off what I find most students end up writing about for this research essay. The first one is what we sort of discussed earlier, applying the Great Gatsby, or you could do Gatsby and Ohio to modernism, explain how one or both of these texts is an example of modernism. We just did that little activity. You could kind of use that as almost an outline for what you want to be writing about. Choose a character from the Great Gatsby or Winesburg, Ohio, and do a character analysis of this character. In the past, I've had people choose similar characters and sort of compare them. And how are they similar? How are they different? Okay. Provide an in-depth analysis of one of the characters, exploring his or her role in the story, characteristics of the person, motivations, etc. Again, that's kind of what you make of it, which direction you want to go in. You can consider gender roles in the novel. What was the roles of men and women in this novel? What was expected of them? We talked quite a bit about gender roles in both novels. You could compare the similarities and differences if you would like. The stories are set about, if I remember correctly, about 50 years apart. I might be a bit off with that. No, about 30 years apart. You could ask yourself, have things changed for gender roles since in that gap? Have they not? Why not? What do these books say about the American dream? Is it possible? Why or why not? Okay. So these are just a few of the ones that I thought of off the top of my head. You do not have to do these topics. You can pick something else completely different, but I do need you to tell me what your topic is so that tonight I can look at it and I can say, yes, that's a good topic. You can easily get 5 to 6 pages out of it, or I might tell you, hey, you might need to broaden it out a bit. You're only going to get 3-4 pages out of that at most. Okay? So you need to pick your topic by the end of the period. This is the rubric. You can look at this at your leisure. Okay. Basically, I need you to understand that it's out of 100 points just for the essay itself. Very good. Thank you. All right. So let's look at a few other things really quickly. First of all, I've given you some resources here. Notice I've given you a bunch of articles. I'm going to be adding, I think I told you 2 seconds ago, I'm going to add one more article to it that we didn't get a chance to read. Gale database link is right here. This is where I want you to choose your topic. I want you to tell me what your topic is, okay, right here. And then this is where you'll do your research notes. And I do want you to actually go ahead and open up your laptops and open this up because I'd like for you to be able to see what I'm doing. Okay. This is where you will take your notes. Now, some of your articles that you've read for me can be applied to this research essay. If you're going to do a research essay about Daisy, a characterization about Daisy, honestly, you could look at the article about flappers that I gave you, and you could use that as a source, and you could apply it to Daisy. Easy peasy. That's fine. Okay? So if you do that, you can even transfer your notes to these note cards. Okay? What I want you to do is you're going to take your notes for your research essay here. Don't forget that you first need to find the MLA source citation for the Gale database. Remember that is at the bottom of the article if I gave you their article. And at the Gale database, at the website itself, it's in the margin. I will show you guys that tomorrow as a reminder. It's already provided for you. Don't have to actually fill it in. Otherwise, you have to go to EasyBib. Those will go on your works cited. Okay, there are going to be several checkpoints along with this assignment. If you're excused, again, you're excused from the checkpoint. Just make certain that you are getting your checkpoints in because I'm not going to check the checkpoints twice. I'm going to check them once and I'm going to move on. Okay, there's just no room for wiggle room here. So if you don't turn in a checkpoint on time, then you get a 0. Okay, so if I say you need to turn in at least 10 notes by tomorrow at 4, which I'm going to do, okay, then you get a 0 if you don't get it into me by 4. Okay, some of them are only worth 5 points, some of them are worth 10 points. You just got to get those babies in. Okay, to keep you on track and so that I can help you out too. Whenever you're finding sources, these are good sources, things that you'll want to be looking for. Anything from the Gale database, I would suggest that you start there. The internet is a wide, vast plane, and honestly, there are some good things there and there are some not so good things there. So start at Gale database because you'll know all that stuff is good. You can click here. Password is MHS Giants. I would suggest using these. If you notice when you open it up, there are a whole series of different databases here within the database itself. I would suggest that you stick to, I would suggest that you stick to these ones. Okay, the other ones are like dealing with science and opposing arguments and yada, yada, yada. Those are not going to be as helpful to you. I suggest you use .org or .edu, sources from reliable companies or individuals. Like if you find an article by a professor that's posted on Georgia University website, that's fine. But don't choose one that's written by a student, okay? Because they might not know what they're talking about. It's probably just something they posted for an assignment. Okay, bad sources. If I see these sources, I'll put a big X through them. No blogs, ever. No SparkNotes, Shmoop, CliffNotes, GradeSaver. I understand that they do have some good stuff, but I want you guys to be using other materials. No Wikipedia, no Prezis, ever. Anybody can make a Prezi. And avoid most.com sites. The only reason why I say most is because some universities have started having some support.com sites, so most.com sites. Requirements, here's what you have to have. You have to have at least 5 notes from the novel, 3 of which must be direct quotes. Okay? Now, you have to have at least a total of 40 note cards. All right, I had a student ask me earlier if how many secondary source note cards we needed then. I'm going to say you have to have at least 25 of your 40 note cards have to be from secondary sources. Okay? That means 15 of your note cards could be just from the novel. If you're doing character analysis, honestly, your essay might be book heavy. That means you're going to be using a lot more quotes from the book and that sort of thing. That's fine. Okay, but you need to have at least 25 note cards from secondary sources. Does that make sense? Okay. You need to have the novel and at least 3 additional secondary sources. Okay, total of 40 note cards. This assignment is worth 50 points. All right, so everybody should be on their notes right now. And what you're going to do is as you are reading, okay, or for the novel, you'll be going back, you need to take some notes right here. Now, in this first section, you will take notes about the novel, in this case, either Winesburg, Ohio, and or The Great Gatsby, okay? And then over here, you will tell me if it's a direct quote or a summary, and I'm going to show you an example of that in a second. The reason why is you will cite it differently if you have a summary or a direct quote. Okay, and I want you to make certain you understand what's a summary and what's a quote. The important thing, though, is make certain that you put the MLA citation for your source right here. If you are doing both The Great Gatsby and Winesburg, Ohio right now, I want you to copy this and paste it right below, because anytime that you have a new source, okay, anytime you have a new source, you need to have a new MLA citation, okay? All the MLA citation is, it basically says, hey, I'm talking about Gatsby now. Hey, I'm talking about did World War I lead to the lost generation, okay? It helps you remember where you got your materials. Does that make sense? So anytime that you change your source, you need to change to another note card, as it were, okay? Another source card, I should say, okay? I split them up by pages. If you need more columns, which you will, okay, you go to the last little box and you just hit tab a bunch of times with your, on your keyboard, okay? Easy peasy. All right, notice source 1, source 2, secondary source 3, okay? Are there any questions about this so far? Okay, if you understand what you're doing, go ahead and just get started. If you need an example about how to take notes, go ahead and follow with me. I'm just going to use the Did World War I Lead to the Lost Generation, okay, because it's an article you've already read. I'm going to pretend like I'm going to be writing about how The Great Gatsby is a modernist text. Again, if you know what you're doing, go ahead and work. I'm fine. If you're writing about how The Great Gatsby is an example of modernism, you could use The Lost Generation as an example of that, because The Lost Generation deals with a lot of the same issues of disillusionment, of pessimism, that kind of a thing. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look here. Okay, I'm going to start reading. I'm going to take notes. Now, for you guys, you should already have your notes, right? Because you should have already read this back in your context. This is buried in your context reading way back at the beginning of this unit. All right, so honestly, if you already have like this passage highlighted, you could just copy and paste that right now, okay? But I'm going to give you an example about what this should look like. So I'm reading through the article. During World War I, also called the Great War, millions of people around the world lost their lives and millions more were seriously injured. Those who survived the war were changed forever because of the horrible, senseless violence they experienced. Okay, now that sounds a lot like senseless violence that happened in our novel. Okay, so I'm going to copy and paste this over. I think I want this note, so I'm going to paste it over here in the notes. All right, and that was a direct quote. Okay, and all I'm doing is I'm telling myself it's a direct quote, so later on I will know what I need to put in quotation marks and what I don't need to. They generally felt disillusioned following the war. Many other people of the same generation, known as the Lost Generation, were changed as well. Generally, the Lost Generation includes people who were born during the baby boom from 1883 to 1900s. More specifically, the term refers to a group of expatriate writers living in Europe. I remember back from my reading that Fitzgerald was an expatriate writer, okay? And later on, and it says this later too, that Fitzgerald was one of the Lost Generation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my notes, and I'm going to put right here, Fitzgerald was one of the Lost Generation. Okay? Now those are my words, so I'm going to put it as a summary. Does that make sense? And then I just keep going. All right. In essence, the members of the generation felt emotionally confused and lost in society, disenfranchised and disconnected even from one another. Following the war, they developed a different view of the world around them. Having rejected the values they held, they began rebelling. Okay, that's like a definition of modernism right there. So I'm going to copy that quote. I'm going to paste it right here. Okay. All right, now notice I don't need a page number because there is no page number. Okay. So this is how you're going to take your notes. So out of my 40, I now have 1, 2, 3 already done, just from the first paragraph.